Now, we're popularizing alienation and alcoholism. No, 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 no. Decide right now. Decide. Sense the clear. And I used to say righteous instead of saying cool. But now we're back to radical. Back your
This is Robert Stark. I'm joined here with Robert Inhuman. Robert, great having you on.
Good to be here.
And I'm also joined here with my co-host, Pilleater.
Thanks for having me on, Robert Stark. And it's nice to talk to you, Robert Inhuman. I'm actually a big fan of your work.
Okay, cool.
Robert, you're a musician. You previously had the group Realicide, and now you have your own group, Decide Today. How was Realicide formed?
I mean, it was really just was really just me and some of my friends, like who were in our late teens, or actually, I guess Will was probably about 15 or 16, who were coming from punk, clearly, but looking for a more appropriate, like contemporary version of such. Basically, trying to do something that seemed more fitting for the now. Reading a lot of books about people's reactions to punk and industrial and things like that in the early days, and seeing a lot of our peers worshipped as stories and whatnot, but seeing that largely had, in the early 2000s, like going about things in the same way that these like rock and roll bands and whatnot really was fairly impotent. So it was a matter of trying to find means to have a similar effect where people were going to notice and was going to shake things up and kind of defy convention in a way that was updated. And that's pretty much the basis of it.
You're into electronic music. There's kind of this general perception that punk is the antithesis of electronica.
Oh, no, I disagree.
I'm not saying that's my opinion, but that's kind of that's like the stereotype.
Oh, you mean like punks that don't like techno?
Yeah, that's kind of the
perception. Oh yeah, I think that's really unfortunate because by the way, if I'm distracted at any point, it's because I'm on kind of a tight schedule tonight, and I actually left my bag inside the venue where the show is about to happen, and so I keep on looking back. Hold on just a second. Hey, Jerome, I left my bag inside. I'm gonna be on the phone for like an hour. Could you just don't let anybody take it? Thanks.
That's so cool.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
It makes me feel a little bit better. Anyway.
That kind of goes back to kind of like, even in the early 80s, there was a kind of rivalry between like punk and new wave in the early 80s.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, all I know is from the beginning, the idea was like even before Realicide used records. I used to, when I was like 18, I would into this phrase like more punk, less rock, So it's more about the underlying like life philosophy rather than any kind of like rigid aesthetic convention that necessitated like or obligation on like rock and roll format, And don't get me wrong, I like rock bands and I like that format and a lot of the culture, especially in times of more potency, it's had. But I just don't care about these restrictions. That's why I like electronics, and electronics are very much like a now. You know, it's like it's for the future, and you know, it's. I mean, Throbbing Gristle is from, you know, way before I was even born, and I mean that was, to me, the reason why I got so much into things like that is because it seemed like, you know, the same idea as punk, but taking it a lot further and taking it to like more dangerous, like edgy, socially challenging places. So, I mean, this idea of like, should punks listen to electronic music or not, is just, it's played out, man, for real.
Pilleater, you were telling me that you discovered
Realicide through
hentai Lacerator.
Yes, I remember that, and I think that was a project of Robert.
I'm sorry to hear that.
No, I like that. I thought it was funny, and I had the 7-inch and everything, and I was like, oh, well,
yeah,
who's behind
that'll
that?
happen.
And then I found
that'll
out
happen for sure.
and I found it out through Realicide. I was
hopefully it could be a doorway into more worthwhile things, at least.
And when I was this was a very long time ago, but a few years ago, when I kind of was like 15 or 16, I went to see you guys in Philadelphia, and it was like the best thing ever. It definitely gave a good impression.
Oh yeah, which show was it? Do you remember like the place or what year it was?
Oh, I think it was the Danger Gallery.
Oh, in the basement.
Yes, I had a green shirt.
Yeah,
on.
that was wild. And that night was really intense because I took Squirrel to the hospital late that night, and then we came back over, and
Jim Swill looked. He kind of
set the alarm off on the way back in, and it was a real ordeal.
I remember that night, and he was just from the impression I got, he looked very not disgruntled, but kind of in a.
That's how he always looks, though.
Okay, and I remember just talking to you, and you were really friendly, and just I was kind of my
he's always really, he's self-conscious about it. He always thinks that he looks like he's angry or something, but really he's the kind of guy that's always got a lot going on in his head. He's really thinking about things, processing things like very critically on a moment-to-moment basis, and a lot of the time he's really self-conscious that it's making his face look like he's upset, but really he's just processing the world around him, you know?
It just shows you how, like, kind of deep. I just had a really good impression on Realicide, and like I was really young, and then eventually I saw Mavis Concave later and Evolve. And a couple of other bands on Realicide Youth Records, and
sure.
I believed that digital hardcore was a thing. Now I understand too. You're actually quite a fan of Atari Teenage Riot.
Yeah, I mean, this the whole digital hardcore phenomena coming from Berlin and UK and etc. You know, the early breakcore and the more anarchist, like radicalized strains like ABBA and things like that from the '90s is still. I mean, it's still my go-to. ATR, you know, has its place, but I'll always go back to Bomb 20, things like that. You know, things that are. That's the electronic punk, you know, that's stuff that's contemporary means, you know, to convey.
No, I was just saying, in a spiritual way, I went to go see Atari Teenage Riot when I was 19 at Philadelphia again,
okay.
And I had that same spiritual message I got from seeing your show when I was much younger.
Sure.
And from that, I'm thinking to myself, is really this whole thing of digital hardcore all starts with one band. You know how there's one band, it comes, they start a whole genre, then it disappears when they disappear. Yeah. And so when I think about it, what was Atari Teenage Riot's message was that it was this loud electronic music about kind of the end of the world and some cyberpunk aesthetics. And
generally anti-fascist and internet rights and things like that.
And now it's funny is that are we living today through the Atari Teenage Riot prophecy? And like every other day, there seems to be a riot.
I mean, maybe. I guess, but I mean, it's relevant, but it's also very limited. I mean, it's relevant. Like keeping government regulation out of like cyber, you know, media and anti-fascist is clearly like more relevant than it has been my whole lifetime right now.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, there's a lot else going on right now. You know, I mean, here in the States especially. I mean, I literally just walked from a meeting at Cincinnati's McMicken Free Space about heartbeat bill trying to ban any abortions after detectable heartbeat, which can be as soon as like 6 weeks after conception. We got the standing arc resistance in North Dakota against the pipeline construction. We got Black Lives Matter. I mean, there's a lot going on. It's like, I mean, the prophecy of like Y2K and all that. I mean, I still love those albums and everything, but there's a lot to juggle now.
Yes. You've also went to I want to get this. You're also an artist, and some of your art is throughout the Realicide releases, and especially on the record label. And you have a very cartoony kind of style. One of my friends said that it looks like Joan Vasquez. Is that kind of an influence on your art?
Yeah. Oh yeah. When I was in my early teens, I was when I was a little kid, I would read like X-Men and things like that. But like it was cool, when you're little. That's what's available. It's just you find what you most identify with and take what you can get. But it's like I'm more of a scrawny dude. I'm not this like muscle dude or anything. I was looking for something, especially by the time I became a teenager, that I could relate to a little bit more legitimately. And I remember finding, I think the first Johnny comic I got, Johnny Homicidal Maniac #4, had just been printed. This is like in the mid '90s, and I got that, and it's fucking terrifying. I'd never seen anything like that, and it really. I was hooked. Like I got the ones from before it. I followed everything from that point forward, and it really, Vasquez's stuff in the '90s. Yeah, I've really haven't followed what the guy's been doing in the 21st century, but I tell you, in high school in the '90s, like I was about that shit. It really helped give me a different direction. So big ups to him for doing that. Also, Evan Dorkin from people know him from Milk and Cheese, but his Dork comics and like Hectic Planet, some of that other slave labor graphic stuff from the '90s was really what shaped my drawing style.
Yeah. Were you influenced by White House?
White House?
They're like the shock art bands from like.
I prefer Thought and Gristle.
No,
hey, I'll tell you. I'll tell you. I really like. Well, you said White House with the Power Electronics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. I definitely prefer Thought and Gristle, but I'm I'm massively in favor of this past summer when Clipping made the Wriggle track with the White House samples, and Hayes Pierce of like Power Electronics are getting all bent out of shape of it. I think it's fucking awesome, and I'm really proud of like my Clipping dudes in Los Angeles for really like taking this like noise rap thing to like such epic levels. Like I'm so proud of them whenever I see them like on like a TV show or like getting some kind of like recognition, because like Jonathan and Bill and V-Man, like they're fucking solid homies, and like they're really doing it up. It's like amazing, fucking like pushing the envelope like so much. Like it's beautiful. That's my answer. That's my answer about if I'm like White House or not. I'm trying to fuck with like Clipping like Wriggle for real.
In today's environment, there's so much electronic music going about where it's like you can do so much subgenres and so much things. Like we like to talk about vaporwave. That seems to be a very popular form of music where you can get things of the past of '80s and like anime and just slow it down, and then so people have their own subcultures through the internet. And like you were just saying, where you can just get samples and make rap music from it. I mean, it seems like where is this like electronic music going at the same time? Is it becoming more human-like and more? How does it relate to more of the punk culture? Could I just get up a laptop and start like screaming and singing poetry?
That's why. I mean, that's what people. I mean, yeah, man. Like that's what I'm trying to say. Is like you don't have to have all this equipment. Like it's especially with the accessibility of a lot of like software. Kids can get that. You just need like one box, some headphones, and some speakers, and you do your band. It's it's punk. It's like seizing that means of production. It's like doing your thing. I mean. Very much like, and it's only becoming more and more like that. That's why when I'll travel to, places with a a little bit less wealth and resources like Eastern Europe, they'll be producing, they'll be doing the thing. They understand punks making techno, like they're about that shit.
Can you explain kind of your philosophy behind technology? I know you had a song called MySpace, which was critical at social media. And I mean, MySpace, that was a long time ago, but social media.
Yeah, that song's from a long time ago. I mean, we can keep talking about stuff from like, we can keep talking about stuff from like a long time ago if you guys want, or we could talk about it now. But I mean, whatever you guys want. But basically, I mean, that was a track that Jim Squill wrote. So that was, it was. I mean, the song was written when MySpace was the thing. I guess now, I don't know. I mean.
Like
it is what it is. I mean, you see how things are. I mean, everybody's already got their opinions. I still don't know if I really have any like especially useful insight to like add to the mix at this point. I mean.
Yes, it's like as you make electronic music and as it's becoming more punk-like, at the same time we live in a very high surveillance. Everything where our data is being fished. There's corporation, and yet. There's this kind of, is there a Luddite philosophy going on where it's anti-technology with pro-technology means, or is this?
Do you mean like DivTech?
Like
do you mean? Because I mean, DivTech's music is basically, in my opinion, it's the best on like an international scale. Is like my favorite. If you want to call it digital hardcore music that's being made currently, and the production is immaculate. It's just fucking calculated. It's amazing, but it has a strong, like, anarcho-primitivist and anti-civilization themes throughout it. It's very green anarchist content mixed in. So, if that's what you mean by being critical of technology while using it, is that anything what you're getting at?
Yeah, and
DivTech is basically the epitome of that.
As we're in a stage where things are becoming more into technology, at the same time there's communities and you meet people face to face. And yet so much of our lives are stuck on our phones and we're texting. And yet technology can tell us ironically the opposite of what is. How do you balance between the two, between being a real community and between being absorbed into internet culture and a fictional world?
That's a real that's a real dilemma these days. Just use it. I guess it really is the same as I would have said back with Realicide. Use it as a tool, use it as a communicative tool, but then take that pump, get up, get out of the house. Don't just be clicking on shit. You got to get up. You got to be out in the real world, face to face. That's how, change can be prompted through digital media, but a real change comes through.
I remember a long time ago,
struggle in real life.
At the Philadelphia show, you told everyone, "This isn't Comcast on demand. This is now." I thought that was very funny, but.
Oh, isn't Philadelphia the Comcast headquarters?
Yes, it is, too.
Yeah.
That's
What are your thoughts on transhumanism and cyberpunk culture? Are you familiar with Rachel Haywire? She seems to be kind of into that scene with cyberpunk. And
no, I'm not super familiar with the topic, but if you brief me on it, in a few sentences, I could probably give an opinion about it. But I mean, otherwise, we can move on.
Transhumanism is like altering the human body with the science to.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, I'm probably not going to have any like chips put on me. I mean, like, I guess if you have like a dog or something, I wouldn't really want to put a microchip in a dog either. But at least if your dog like runs away, it's easier to find your dog. But I'm probably not going to put a microchip in me or like nothing else, honestly. But I don't know. I just been watching like a lot of like that Black Mirror shit, and so I'm like hella annoyed on that shit right now. But when people want to deal with their bodies, go for it. I mean, that's going to be my go-to answer. I mean, just do what you want to do with your body. But like, It seems like, especially if you're referring to things that are going to be like online, you know, and they're connected to a network, it's going to lead to a grisly dystopian result. But you know, I guess we'll just have to see where it goes. I'm pretty ignorant about the movement for transhumanism, though, to be honest.
How would you kind of describe like your overall philosophy? Like when I hear the term like a realicide, that kind of I think of like kind of like waging war against reality. Are you talking about kind of like a
Yeah, that's
false
fine.
narrative? Yeah, like a kind of false narrative. Is there something kind of like anarchic or nihilistic about it?
It's anarchist, yeah. I mean, very much so. I hope. Yeah, you've got to realize it's a term that I was throwing around when I was like 18 years old, and the kids who were working with me are even younger, and we were all about it. You know, it's changed its meaning over the years. It's gone through growing as we've grown. You know, so at this point, yeah, I am in favor of the idea of anything but default, like rejecting the faults that you're either born into or, you know, socially conditioned, insisted upon. It is about assessing realities of abuse and oppression, and yeah, making changes, eradicating them when necessary, in favor of one that's been crafted out on your own, among your community, among your peers. You know, something where you have a choice in the matter. So that is the, you know, in a nutshell, what the idea is. But yes, it's generally the idea is anarchist.
How much of a anarchy philosophy is interested in Realicide? I used to like crime think growing up and reading books like Invasion and Days of War, Nights of Love.
Okay, yeah.
Kind of like that. Is there any influence of that?
Are you asking if it's like crime thing? No, I mean, I appreciate some of the crime thing stuff, but no, I wouldn't want to officially affiliate myself with it. I appreciate a lot of it. They've made some good zines, like good books. But what's your question exactly? Is it am I like crime thing?
I mean, yeah. What are some of your internal influences about that and anarchy culture and your writing style?
Well, do you mean me now or me when I was like a teenager, or when do you mean?
Yeah, now or you're a teenager.
Oh, now I highly recommend things that are coming from strangers in a tangled wilderness, like the zines that are published under Strangers in a Tangled Wilderness, like fantastic. I don't know. There's the zine that comes with the new Div Tech record. Like, you can just go get the text for it, the PDF of it. It's beautiful. I don't know. I mean, I got a lot of influences. I mean, I mainly just try to like keep good company and try to take influence from like any of my peers that seem of sound mind. You know.
Yes. Did you follow the zine Answer Me in the 90s?
No, I probably didn't really have too many zines outside of what people just gave me in school in Cincinnati in the 90s, and so it was pretty limited.
Mm-hmm. I mean, so
I'm not familiar with it.
Your album, Resisting the Viral Self, has a lot of...
from 2009?
Yeah, 2009 has a lot of philosophy behind the songs. I got one. I guess we can kind of go over a number of them. The absent rapist.
That's a cool song. Also, that album has like a 32-page zine that pretty much explains the idea song by song very articulately.
Yes,
yes. You were saying that song reminds you of Peter Sotos.
Oh, no, it's funny because I have that zine right near my working desk, and I was just looking at it. I think it's amazing that you make a zine with your album, and someone who doesn't know Realicide and listens to this album makes so much more meaning to the song's content. And so, for such tracks like The Absent Rapist, and the intro becomes before it, it's just about our, sexually crazed society. Some of the, it's written by Swill, but, some of it, it's like, there's some morality, like The Insane Angel is about how there's too much of a power relation between you and a lover, or like, everything is a camera about social media. It seems to me that there's deep philosophy written in these texts. Was it all just Jim Swill, or how much of your writing's in that too?
In the zine?
Yeah, in the song lyrics, in the creation of those songs.
Well, I mean, I made most of the songs.
Yeah. I mean, it's just I know. It's just
So-
how was like. Do you remember making those songs on a computer, and what were you exactly thinking during those times?
Oh, whoa! I just found a bunch of. Oh shit! I just found a bunch of credit cards on the sidewalk. Okay, sorry, I got distracted. I'm just like pacing up and down Central Avenue. I'm gonna have to give these to somebody because somebody just lost like all of their shit and ID and everything. Anyway, what was I thinking about when I made the songs on the computer? Like 10 years ago?
Yes. That's
I was thinking I was thinking like I was probably just thinking about when like tour was gonna start again, honestly, man. Back then I was just like I didn't even live anywhere. I was just like setting a computer in somebody's like apartment for a couple days and like making a song here and there and then recording them all, like the vocals, like when I got to like get somewhere else like 6 months later. I was just reflecting on whatever was going on in my life and my half-baked observations around me at the time. I mean, it was my 20s were very turbulent, and I was really just reacting and reflecting the stuff I saw going on around me. And I think that the same would be said by like Swill or anybody else that was working with the group back then.
Would you say the core theme behind those songs is just kind of the emptiness of society? You talk a lot about like consumer culture and lack of authenticity.
I don't know if I would necessarily say that because it sounds like it'd be some like worthless like crust album. Like a nuclear bomb like blowing up on the front. It would just be like we're fucked. It's like okay then, okay, thanks. No, it's more of the idea is definitely meant to be more of like a prompt. It's meant to be something to spark dialogue, and that was a lot more blurry and chaotic with Realicide because your teens and your 20s are more blurry and chaotic times a lot. That's why I'm really happy about the direction things have gone with Decide today the past few years because now I'm in my early 30s and I can be a lot more calculated, a lot more intentful, precise. I'm not as governed by my emotions as when I was a younger person. So, but yeah, it's meant to be a prompt. It's meant to be, something to start a conversation, or sometimes meant to be, something to provide an empowering feeling to a kid who feels beaten down by maybe like the big world that you're referring to.
It's in Decide Today. You have songs about like the cops and like don't talk to the cops or some issues that relate today. Could you talk more about Decide Today's philosophy compared to Realicide's?
I'd love to because I thought you'd never ask because that's what I'm doing now. Yeah, it's really supposed to be just a continuation of the previous project with a bit of a clean start. Realicide's discography is just a mess. I can't even tell like what was what from back then. It's just chaos. Like it's such cacophony.
Is Decide Today, is it more political than Realicide?
Yeah, but I'd say the reason for that is because as I've gotten older and I'm not as my mind's not as turbulent on a moment-to-moment basis. I can organize my thoughts better. Also, I've like scratched the itch of like aimless wanderlust and things like that. Now I can just kind of choose good company that's gonna help me organize my thoughts and help me be influenced by things that are actually more like helpful. My life philosophy has just been developed, so it kind of makes sense that things have developed in a more of a politically constructed and coherent. Coherence is the word I'm looking for here. It's more coherent.
What are the followers behind this? What's been the reactions with Decide Today? Is there who are like the people? Are there more kind of? Is there like are there like protesters or anti-fascist people that like your music? Are there more of a punk? What's the general audience?
Yeah.
What's the how?
Some of them are people like you guys who have heard my music from a long time ago and want it to be that still. But some of them are, yeah, they're a lot of them are generally my peers now in the communities that I affiliate myself with now these past several years, and so they do come from activism. They do come from more like strategic and calculated social aims, like related to the more constructive avenues of anarchism. Um, they're I think they're generally like pretty cool people. I've been thrilled about it. With Realicide, we've run into some scary characters touring doing that stuff because it had less of a decipherable message. It was more of just this rageful like blur of noise, and the more vague you are, fucked up people could really latch onto that, and that's fine. They're welcome to. But I gotta say, it's a lot more encouraging with the side today to meet people who are, when we talk, when we're asked questions, it's like they're a lot more thoughtful. The relationships that are born from this newer project. I mean, it has been a couple years now. The relationships that are born up the side today seem to be have so much more potential, for like a lasting and relevant social impact. Now, I'm not trying to downplay what I was doing in my younger years, but I couldn't be more thankful for like the direction things have taken. And I got to say, like, it really just ends up being all about like after Realicide, it's a really tough time. I really based a lot of my identity around that project, and it's just, well, what am I going to do? Like, I really didn't know what to do with myself. And it's like you either live or don't, and if you have lost interest in existence and lost capacity for joy, in some ways, like you can still, you're going to be alive and you're going to share the world with everybody still. I do feel a sense of like responsibility to use myself as a resource to help other people that I'm, sharing the world with. That's the basis of Decide today. That's how it started, and now I do have joy. I'm thankful for the relationships that are coming from it. So yeah.
Do people still discriminate against electronic music when you're playing, or is pretty everyone's okay with Decides today very harsh gabber-like noise?
Everybody's different, and in Europe, I haven't scored this space in a couple of years. I've been meaning for 2017, although that's another can of worms as far as like what's going to happen with the DIY scene in the U.S. But in Europe, the past couple of years, generally it's more accepted. It's less unheard of. Electronic music is more, a bit more of a norm there. But and it's people are catching up. It's less prejudiced than it used to be. But I mean, that's kind of like, that's to be expected, I suppose. I mean, so it's better than it was. But some people still really cling to the idea that like things should be the way they were when like their grandparents were, young. Like, I don't understand it. I just don't really give a fuck. It's okay, it sucks to be you, man. I'm gonna be having fun, like listening to breakcore. Do your thing, though. You do you.
That's it's how much of have you been recently into activism or any political rallies? How much have you been?
Yes.
How much? What's some of them? What some of your recent activity like?
Since I got back from Europe for Halloween, like the day before Halloween, and since then I've tabled a radical scene distro that's affiliated with the Realicide label at half a dozen benefit events throughout southern and middle Ohio for resistance to the Dakota pipeline in Standing Rock up in North Dakota. Been involved in studies of Black Lives Matter. It's some really, really incredible core principles. I'm very, very proud and thankful to have that going on here. I was just before the interview, I literally walked out in the free space, meeting, planning action against this quote unquote heartbeat bill, related to choice like abortion, politics, action. And it's fucking fantastic. What's his direct action info. And half of the money went to Appalachian Resist, which is a regional eco defense group, generally against fracking and things like that in this region. We did a benefit for a campaign trying to end horse carriages being used in downtown Cincinnati. So, in other words, more animal liberation related. And also, for the past 6 years, I've organized Cincinnati's June 11th annual day of solidarity with all long-term active prisoners. At the beginning of the year, I organized.
You're kind of breaking out.
Okay.
Pilleater, are you able to hear?
Yeah,
me?
I'm here.
Okay, well, so in other words, yes, I've been doing a lot of
Say I
stuff.
missed the phone. The phone's been going on and off. I missed the last part.
Okay.
You could try walking. Maybe there's Maybe you were walking somewhere else with better reception.
Yeah. Let me know if it gets any better as I'm walking in this direction.
You've been involved in different causes, political causes. Can you talk about the different ones? I know one of them has been animal rights and the environment.
Yeah. Okay. So should you say all that stuff?
Yeah. Talk about your background in environmentalism.
Okay. All right. I just said all that stuff. Okay. So the stuff that's been going on most recently is I got up to the European tour, back to Cincinnati. I'm getting phone calls from all sorts of unsavory characters. You guys are still there, right?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
Okay. So in this past month, I've taken about half a dozen benefits of this for the resistance to the Texas pipeline and the resistance of the state in North Dakota. Been involved in Cincinnati's Black Lives Matter chapter. Really, really fantastic leadership, excellent core principles, and very thankful to have something so crucial going on in Cincinnati because we got a long history of racial tension, so very, very important here for Black Lives Matter. My other band is called Bolt Cutter, and it's just a conventional hardcore band. Mainly play local shows. So, we did benefit that for the CD release earlier this year in Cincinnati. The money went half to Black Back Magazine, which is animal rights direct action, and their website is directaction.info. It's an incredible news source. And then the half went to Appalachian Resist, which is a regional eco defense group that mainly deals with the resistance to the practice of fracking in the Midwest region. Also, we're doing a benefit event for ending horse carriages being used in downtown Cincinnati. So it's another animal liberation related event. In the past 6 years, I've been the organizer of Cincinnati's June 11th event, which is the annual for international solidarity of all long-term anarchist prisoners. Back in January at the turn of the year, so we'll be getting ready to do the second annual. We did solidarity with trans prisoners, which is like a really heavy topic because you talk about the brutality of the American prison system combined with the brutality against the trans community in this country. Put those together, it's like a fucking, it's a nightmare to say the least. So, I don't know, there's probably a few other things going on. I just came from McMicken Free Space where they're having a meeting trying to find creative ways to stop this quote-unquote heartbeat bill related to politics of like abortion and pro-choice rights in Cincinnati or in Ohio in general. There's a lot going on,
Mm-hmm.
It's really a variety of topics, but the thing is, it all ends up being anarchy. So basically, the pursuit of any serious anarchist is total liberation, and that means any kind of abuse, any means of oppression. That's the opponent.
Interesting. It seems like all these types of political groups could also have an interest in Decide Today and what you are offering, and it seems like that you are all for these causes and that everyone has a say when you're in Decide. What is the overall like moral message? It seems to be that you're fighting against any forms of oppression. Would you say that you are trying to get that anarcho lifestyle without? Would you say anarchy be a huge philosophy, what you're trying to get out there?
Are you asking if we're promoting anarchism?
Yeah. Are
Yes,
you promoting
the point of Decide Today is definitely to promote anarchism.
And would
you
you...
think of, like, with say an issue like animal rights and the environment and anarchism and the role of government, if anarchism is like abolishing the government, how would you like prevent? Do you see a role for government in protecting the environment and animal rights and those kinds of issues?
Basically, when it comes to animal eco defense, I really don't favor working with oppressive institutions, and I am highly skeptical about inherently oppressive institutions even being sincerely capable of protecting the rights of human or animal life or the sanctity of the natural environment. But if people want to explore within the system ways of getting results for these pursuits, these causes, more power to them, because like at the end of the day, all I give a fuck about is if we're gonna have like an Earth tomorrow. All I give a fuck about is if animals are being treated with more dignity tomorrow, and the same with human life and social rights and all that. I mean, by any means necessary, but I do believe that an anarchist life philosophy is. The appeal of it is it's really one of the only modes of being that seems to really engage like all encompassing. It's about total liberation. Right? It deals with it all.
Are you would you consider yourself a nomad, or do you have a commune that you go to when you are?
I have a house.
Okay. I'm just because there's some anarchists that are like, they literally are homeless and they'll just do, take whatever, rely on their friends.
The Realicide records that you're referring to were made during the times that I was nomadic, and DivTech is still often nomadic, and other people are. But I very much live in Cincinnati, and I very much live at home with a bunch of friends. It's awesome. Yeah, it's just called Realicide House, and it's where the record label and Zine Distro are operated. It's where we can have meetings with friends, little parties with friends, like do band practices and fun tours. And
could your place act as a concert venue where people go and they have bands play there, right?
Oh no, there is not a public space.
Oh, okay.
Last year, actually, I'm looking at the place that I lived at last year right now. It was called Side Central. It was in the neighborhood of Ryden, in kind of a post ex-industrial neighborhood in Cincinnati. And Side Central was like a large gallery space where between January and September of 2015, we hosted 56 events from like music shows and benefits and movie nights and huge clothing swap in coalition with like Cincinnati's First Lady Fest. Just all kinds of stuff. It was great. It was really my fucking favorite place that I've ever helped operate as far as like a DIY space. And developers paid $250,000 to buy the building and pushed us out so that they could try to make a retail store in a neighborhood that's never had anything like that before. And I believe it's to usher in the money of yuppies. So, well, you know, I mean, everybody's heard the word gentrification at this point, so I wouldn't have to get into it. But that was the venue last year. I don't have that anymore, but I have somewhere that is going to be more permanent. The backyard is forest. It's beautiful, and we can't have shows necessarily, or we won't be having shows necessarily, but we can still be a stable place that's going to be around a lot longer, that can help facilitate the efforts and the organization of like a lot of other people who are maybe operating spaces. So I think it'll serve an important role in Cincinnati.
What do you think about the whole debate about like art, music, and profit? Do you think musicians who become rich, do you think that corrupts their? Do you think that can corrupt their work?
Yo, I mean, when I become rich, I'll like let you know if it corrupts my work. I don't know, man. I mean, I think Bandcamp is pretty sick. So, I mean, people should do that if they can make like billions of dollars from Bandcamp, and that's fucking tight. But yo, man, it's whatever you do with it. Cause yo, wealth is just privilege, and we all got privileges of one sort or another. I mean, I'm a fucking like straight white dude. I mean, wealth would just be like one more thing. It's like, yo, it's what you do with it. But I mean, there is something peculiar about financial wealth. It's like, I don't know. I would like to think that if I was gonna like acquire financial wealth to some kind of like obscene like scale, that I would try to just distribute it to like the less lucky or whatever. I'd try to use it to like help like people in places that I care about that aren't going to have such a lucky break, you know. So it is strange to be rich and to just be sitting on that. I mean, I'm not saying I want people to always necessarily be like struggling to eat or anything. I'm just saying, like, if you got a lot, you know, like, there's plenty of people out there who just don't got nothing. Like, you gotta straight up share. So wealth is a funny thing. Like, I mean, I'm definitely like wary of it, you know.
Yeah, it just reminds me of that old Realicide song, "I'm Not a Fucking DJ," where it's this about how the DJ makes more money, and kind of a very clever song.
It is still a strange phenomenon, but you know, it is what it is, and you know, maybe I'm a little bit less just rabidly bitter about things like that in my like old age, in my 30s, rather. You know, like I've got more important fights to partake in now that I'm not a kid no more, you know.
Are you going to be a dad or a father soon, or you don't have plans for that at all?
No, actually, I have my vasectomy was just scheduled. It was supposed to be in a couple of days, but there's some kind of an insurance hiccup, and I have to wait until January 9th. But
do you know if
I don't like fuck up the foot in, you know?
There's this whole like philosophy called like antinatalism that says like people should like stop reproducing. Are you into that philosophy, or is that just like a personal?
Well, I believe that there's way too many people as it stands, and I believe that human overpopulation will be the demise of like the planet. But you know, all I can say is what I'm gonna do. I only got authority for me, so I ain't gonna have no kids. And if somebody's like, should I have kids? I can't decide. I'll be like, oh, you probably shouldn't. But like, if I got a friend that's like, I'm gonna have kids, like I'm gonna do it good, then I'm gonna, who am I to like fuck with them about it? I just hope that they do a good job. For example, like Toe Cutter, my homie in Australia, like he got a couple kids, and like, I mean, yeah, they're feral, but they're awesome. Like, and he's the kind of guy that like I want there to be more people like him around. So if he's gonna have a couple kids, like so be it. But nah, I do believe in like human overpopulation being basically like one of the most perilous, like potential, like
do you know
dooming
of
elements in the earth.
This sounds a lot like Chris Korda's philosophy of the Church of Euthanasia. I was actually trying to get him on the show. He was kind of that protester.
Yeah, you told me about him.
He was like this very trans person, said eat a baby fetus for Jesus. He would go around saying people shouldn't reproduce. He was somewhat in the punk culture and into electronic music. That seems. Do you know of Chris Korda?
No, I'm not familiar.
Okay, there's a very similar theme.
The name sounds familiar, but the name rings a bell. But I can't claim to really know anything about this person.
Yeah, I would say there's that borderline digital hardcore influence within him. Yeah, I mean, you probably would have self-identify yourself as a punk, right?
Yeah, I mean, why not?
Yeah, that's because then you have your own punk politics and punk philosophy, and then you have this whole kind of, I don't want to say religion, but it seems that how much of that is ideology compared to just living out your life?
Wait, how much of the politics versus living out my life?
How much is you as an individual, what you want to get out of it, compared to following an ideology where it's like you're following it just because, and you need to be an individual and have things of desires where you don't want people just following things.
If I wasn't about it, I wouldn't do it. So I do what I want, and I want to do what I consider to be right. And so, no, I mean, I'm being Robert very much, like I'm being me. Yes,
that seems the important flaw, because
it turns out I'm an anarchist, so I'm gonna do that shit,
Yep. So it's just like my own self, where it's like, okay, if I like Asian studies, I'm gonna go forth and do Asian studies, and if I want an Asian wife, I go ahead and get an Asian wife. This kind of gung ho theory about you do what you love, you do it, and then you just live by it. And then maybe other people who have similar philosophies follow suit. But some of that is also ideology, and you don't want to follow under, like, is it necessary for someone to be an anarchist when it's not, correct for them to do it in such an environment where it could harm their personality?
Wait, say this question again to me.
Okay, let me reframe it like this way. If someone lived in a nice house, and then kind of anarchist, and he likes some of the anarchist theory, and let's say some of maybe the ideology tells him to, get rid of all the privileged stuff, what you were just mentioning. I mean,
well, it's more what you do with it, and it's more just how you are aware of it and acknowledge the reality of such.
Yes. So it's just that's exactly what I'm talking about, where it's like, can everybody be a punk? Can everybody have some if you were to say, this is why you should be a punk, would you advocate like worldwide everybody should be punk, or is this just something of a personal thing someone finds in their own
No,
desire?
it's fine. I mean, I think that it's such a malleable term that I've got no objection to that. But yeah, it's just going to look like something widely different from person to person, which I also favor. But more so than punk, I do really favor people considering like the virtues of like anarchist life philosophy. And the thing about it is, you've probably seen the direction that things are going in the world. A lot more people than they even realize are pretty down with that shit, It's really taking a direction, but it's not going to be called anarchism. It's going to be, people are going to have all kinds of other words for it, but it's going to be more a direction of egalitarian, like, equality among their peers in the community. It's going to be more conscious of like respect for animal life, respect for, you think everybody that's going up to the resistance at Standing Rock identifies as anarchist? Probably not. But it's so in league. It's so in league with that pursuit of total liberation. You go up there even if you're not, you have no indigenous heritage, but you do it for the rights of like.
Is there like
people in the necessity to protect like the natural environment, like the water, like it's anarchist, like it's very, very associated with that. And kind of like what I was saying a few minutes ago, I don't care what you call it. I don't care about whatever it means. Like at the end of the day, all I care about is people treating each other right, people respecting animal life, and people like making sure that like the planet's like natural environments like are still around a few years from now. That's all I care about. Like, so I mean, labels can be fun and they can be useful, but dude, whatever works, So yeah, let them be a punk, let them be an anarchist, let it look so widely different from person to person. I think that's very healthy, but really just, man, Bill and Ted style, be excellent to each other for real.
Do you think there's a political spiritual war happening in culture where if you associate yourself on, let's say, the egalitarian side, there seems to be a large movement of inegalitarian forces right now, like if you probably have heard the alt-right, where that's gaining huge movement on the internet and seems to be a force against the very nature of what you're trying to. And so I think, is there going to be the spiritual war?
Well, there is kind of an overlap. Isn't there kind of an overlap with anarchism? Like there's Keith Preston's Attack the System.
Yes, and there's anarcho-fascism, where like bands like Def.
Oh no, yeah, I'm not interested.
Exactly.
Definitely not interested in that. Like, that's definitely the adversary.
That's what I'm saying, is that it seems to be there's this spiritual war happening in these cultures where you have an extreme divide between the left and the right. And it seems as well that these forces are going to either compromise or segregate or have this internal war, like some Zoroastrian. I'm looking into this in a funny, abstract way. But what is there to be done about this? Is it kind of a life? What would you?
Yo, it's about Antifa, man, for real.
Okay.
Right now in the United States, motherfucking Antifa.
Okay, so you would be more on the Antifa side, where there would be more of opposed to that. You have, is it more like good and bad, or is it like self?
Yo, man, it's about people being treating each other with respect, combating racism. Like, it's just basic shit, like combating xenophobia, being a vanguard against this like this putrid surge of like bigoted hate crime. In Cincinnati just a few days ago, there was an interracial couple in a neighborhood called Price Hill that they came home from being gone a couple of days for Thanksgiving. The entire house was destroyed. Like, people had poured cement into all the sinks. People had poured paint into the stove. They had let the water run and let like the ceiling collapse in their home. And every wall in the whole place had like white power and swastika spray painted on it. So there's a call to action, if there ever was one, man, for the opposition to that kind of putrid, fucking like despicable, bigoted shit.
I can understand that fully. I do believe in freedom of association, and I do believe in people cleansing their sins of what they've done in the past. So do you give any remorse for these people, or do you think that when people do these things, they're evil, you can't, they're never, they can't repent? Or do you think sometimes I
definitely have a permanent wish. I have a permanent, like, and very, very, like, genuine wish for resolution whenever it's possible. This goes for bigots. This goes for people who have committed sexual assault in the community. I believe, like, in a process of accountability. I believe, like, resolution is like one of the most beautiful things a community can experience when it's genuine and when it's of a permanent nature. But without that accountability and without like a sincere willingness to change from those perpetrators, then I mean that shit is fucking got to go, and it's a fucking fight.
Mm.
So you see it more as a battle between abusers and people who want peace, or more of an ideological disagreement?
What's the question again?
I'm not like between not so much like the people versus the government, but say these different groups. Like,
Oh, that's a good question.
Antifa
Yeah,
and
yeah,
say,
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
right?
There's well, I definitely think that people bickering it's a tough question to answer. In some ways, I feel like people bickering among each other in these smaller groups and subcultures and whatnot really does like a fantastic job of distracting from bigger problems at hand. But at the same time, like sometimes you do have to deal with like smaller issues are more possible to get results in and kind of like some kind of domino effect rather than just trying to like focus on like we've got to get Trump, you know. It's like this huge Goliath type of thing at this point, you know. It just depends,
Do
man.
you think it could be like, obviously you're not a fan of Trump, but are you? But the thing is, a lot of people focus maybe on Trump, but they still say that like they support Hillary Clinton. I mean, she's going to continue like wars and injustice.
Wait, are you asking if I'm a fan of Hillary Clinton?
No, I'm assuming you're not a fan of Hillary Clinton. I'm just saying there's a lot of people out there protesting against like Trump, but then they're saying like if Hillary got elected, she would continue all these things like wars and.
Yeah. No, I really I couldn't in good conscience really. I mean, I try not to participate in mainstream electoral politics anyway, but in this particular case, like I really couldn't in good conscience like participate. I just had to like wait and see what happens and fucking deal with it now. But when we were in Europe, we kind of took a survey from country to country over the course of nearly 2 months. You know, what did people think about the election in America? And the general consensus across Europe was it's going to be fucked up one way or another. But Trump becoming the president of the United States is going to make things like in America a living hell. But Clinton could potentially make it like on a global level could have been worse. That was their prediction. So I guess
you're saying
we'll
their
see.
prediction was that Trump was more dangerous on domestic policy and Clinton was more dangerous in foreign policy.
That's what our friends that's what friends in Europe were saying, like pretty much like throughout that tour, and which was the tour ended like essentially like a week before the election.
Are you talking about anarchists or just fans you talked to?
I mean, most of the people that we would encounter were anarchists, yeah. I mean, you've got to realize a lot of the shows are at like squats and things like that out there. So it's, yeah. I mean, there are people that had that kind of outlook, but those are just happen to be the people that we talked to, and so that's the information that I have to report.
We're getting at the end of this show. Pilleater, do you want to ask one more question?
Yeah, sure. I've always have a fascination with electronic music. It's something of my pet peeve, and I really like to talk about it.
Yeah.
Robert, I think you've also know something of drum machines and such. I remember a long time ago you had that green Korg Electribe sampler where you put all the Gabber beats in there. And it seems to me we're now using digital computers where you get in Reason or Ableton and you make things through VSTs. Do you still have an interest in hardware synthesizers like drum machines and synths? Personally, right now I'm using the Roland TR-09 and TB-03, which is a reissue of the Roland TR-909 and TB-303. Would you use, like, what are your thoughts about these expensive electronic hardware? And would you use them and reappropriate them through a punk style?
Yeah, of course. Like, basically, that sounds great. That sounds like a lot of fun. Pretty much to answer this, if you have the money for it and you feel like it's a responsible use of that money, or especially if you are able to like run across some hardware for cheap or free, or get it from a friend or something, that's the best, obviously. But as far as Yeah, I mean, that sounds fine. It's harder to travel with. I mean, it's a lot easier internationally to get on a plane with just, a couple things rather than like big heavy, machines. But really, as far as any kind of other like tech questions or like gear questions, you'd have to interview Mavis because that Electra IBS-1 was really the only thing that I ever used. You got to realize, like, aside from that, my shit is like 4-track tapes going through a Chaos pad. I mean, it's like brain dead simple. But other people that I'd worked with in the past, like Mavis Concave or Vankman, they're the ones that really knew all that hardware and just like fucking rock that stuff with like a massive talent.
Because I remember you once used Did you ever use a Roland TR-909, an authentic one, and made music with it? I thought you did.
Mavis probably did. Mavis has used everything.
Okay.
Like
maybe.
Everything.
Sure.
And then Vankman uses everything. Vankman's fucking like rocking that shit, man. It's fucking awesome.
We are at the end of the show. Robert Inhuman, I'd like to thank you for being on. It's been an excellent show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Nice talking to you guys.
And also, thanks, Pilleater.
Thanks to talking to you, Robert. It's always been a pleasure.